Hello, my name is Chanelle Goldson, and I am a realtor here in Connecticut. And today we are going through the home selling process. So this seminar is titled How to Navigate the Home Selling Process. So hopefully I answer a lot of the questions that you have about the process. If you do have any other questions after reviewing this recording, feel free to reach out to me. You can reach out if you want to get a comparative market analysis on your property to find out the home value. If you just have any other questions about the home selling process, or any information you need, feel free to reach out. So a little bit about me. I started my journey as an investor. So I've been on as a selling side before as a seller, and I've been on representing sellers as well. So I am not unfamiliar with the process and how it feels to be a seller and to be in your shoes. Now, when it came time for me to sell our properties, I did use a real estate agent because one, I just the time I was working on other things. I didn't want to invest that time into trying to do it on my own. And then two, I wanted to lean on someone who was experienced and knowledgeable that could get it done in the quickest amount of time for the most amount of money. So I was willing to pay that fee for my agent, and they did do an awesome, phenomenal job. And it was a pleasure working with them. So let's get right into it. When you're thinking about selling your home, the number one thing you're going to do first, you're going to prep it. It's your pre-listing preparation. So you want to work on your curb appeal. What we mean about curb appeal is when you're pulling up to the house, soon as someone gets off their car, they're pulling up, they're like, I am in love with this property. You see the well manicured lawn, freshly trimmed bushes, maybe some flowers, some bright white paint. The fence is in good shape, things like that. It is very small things that you can do that make a huge difference. So sometimes the curb appeal can be the selling point of the home. So just by the curb appeal, if it looks it's desirable to someone, they come in, they can overlook things because they fell in love with the outside and they can see that being their home. So that's curb appeal is number one. And then from there, some simple cost-effective upgrades you want to do painting your home. A fresh coat of paint makes a world of difference too. So, we see the grays, you can do the off-white grays are very trendy now. It's whatever you want to do, but you don't want to do any kind of bold colors, any dark colors. You want really neutral colors so that the potential buyers can see themselves living there and making the space their own. So when there's wallpaper, there's bold colors, different cutouts and things like that. It minimizes your pool of potential buyers because they just can't see themselves in the home. It's too personalized. So you want neutral colors in the home as well. And you want to make sure you declutter and you depersonalize. So with declutter, anything that doesn't need to be out, make sure it's not out. So your tables clear. Maybe you have a vase in the middle with some flowers, but other than that, you don't want stuff on your counters. You don't want it on your table. Even the toaster, put the toaster up because having those clean counter space, people can see themselves cooking in the kitchen, having all the space that they need. And then when it comes to depersonalizing, you want to take down those family photos, that, really personal artwork is sometimes even if you have a deer head hanging on the wall. I know, some people may like that and some people may just want to walk out the other way. So anything you can to depersonalize a home, you want to do that. Because again, it's about the buyer coming through and seeing themselves in the home. And, they want to say, I can see myself living here. Now, if they're walking around, it's like hunting gear everywhere. It's rifles, people may not be able to see themselves in that home because of whatever feelings they have about, maybe they're not into hunting, maybe they're vegan, maybe we don't know. So you want to depersonalize those things. And then too, repair and maintenance. Is there a leak somewhere? Is there things that you've been putting off that you need to put off, that you need to get done? You want to get done. Now, Speaking of this, what I noticed too with a lot of sellers who try to do it themselves, we call it FISBOs, for sale by owner, is that sometimes they do too much and then they look at increasing the price of the home well above where it should be because they put in all new granite counters or they did some really expensive updates where the market isn't really going to give them the return that they want for what they invested for that. So you have to be really careful. And that's why an agent, working with an agent, I know because my agents are like, okay, of course you'll say that, but working with an agent, they'll tell you, listen, in this market, you don't even have to do those things, but this is what you can do to increase your profit. So simple things like painting, putting new fixtures on, um, small things like that make a world of difference. That curb appeal that I spoke about, but getting all these high end finishes and things like that may not even be necessary in your market. So having that knowledge and looking at what's sold and what buyers were looking for and what they're willing to pay for is important because in your eyes you may say, okay, to me this is worth $30,000, but to a buyer they don't even care about that. Like that, we see that a lot with garages. People are like, well, I have this garage. I should, net more money because I have a garage. And a lot of buyers honestly don't care. But what they do care about is additional bathroom. So if you have the space to do a half bath or add a bath, that increases the value drastically in a buyer's eyes. So things like that could increase your value. So instead of going with granite counters and high end finishes, you add a half bath somewhere. So you have to identify must-do repairs as well. So when it comes time to go through the home selling process and you get down to the inspection, an agent can know when they're doing their pre-listing walkthrough, okay, these things have to be fixed before we get that far because certain loans will not lend if these things are repaired. So you would know ahead of time if you're kind of prepare. So there are some things that you may know that you need to fix. Maybe your walkway is there's cracks in your walkway. You know you need to seal those or fix the handrail. Those are obvious to you, but as an agent, there's things that I go around and I see maybe there's shingles missing from the roof. That needs to be fixed because the insurance carrier is gonna deny coverage for that. Hand railing, is there a hand railing present where it needs to be present? Is there chipped paint? The chip paint needs to be replaced. So you just have to think about, well, what things will come up on the inspection that I can fix now. Or if you wait, then you just have to wait and see what the agent comes up with on the buyer side, what they're gonna ask for you to fix and for credits. That's what you're gonna run into. So we talked about that preparing your home. Now pricing your home to sell. That's a big one. So one of the ways to figure out how to price your home is get a CMA. CMA is a comparative market analysis. So it just shows you, okay, what homes are on the market and what they're on the market for. But what we're really looking at are the home sold because that tells you what buyers are willing to pay for in the market and looking at homes that are comparable to yours. So you can't say my neighbor's house sold for 400K, so I want to sell for 400K. Well, your neighbor's house has an extra bathroom. It has a larger yard. It's larger space, larger square footage. So you can't expect to get the same price. So that's what you're looking at a comparative market analysis. You want to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges so you can price it right. And then two, you want to price it to where you're attracting buyers. So what you'll notice too that we'll have a range for your market value, but in order to entice buyers, maybe you fall a little bit lower so that now you have a multiple offer situation because you have so many eyes on your property and so many buyers, and now they're seeing it and they're gonna naturally offer more because they really want that property. And so that's kind of how you can strategize to attract multiple offers. Now, one thing that's really, really big with people that are attempting to sell their homes on their own is overpricing. So you're seeing the home sit on the market 60 days, 80 days, 100 days. Some 325 days. 457 was one that I saw. And they just weren't willing to budge on the price. And, so you want to make sure your home is priced right. Now, how do you get this comparative market analysis? You can try to do it on your own, or you can reach out to an agent and just let them know that you are interested in getting a CMA, comparative market analysis, and if they will be willing to give you one now. I know personally, if I may have a potential to work with you, I will get that to you. But it's I don't think it's really beneficial to give someone a CMA without giving them the guidance that goes along with how to understand the CMA and how to price your property right according to that CMA. So just giving you a CMA isn't too beneficial because what are you going to really do with that? There's advice that goes along with that CMA. It's just like a guideline, but then you need to understand, okay, what do we do with it? Now, and you priced it right, you prep your home, you priced it right, and now comes marketing. You want to reach the right buyers. So you want to this online strategies when you're selling yourself for sale by owner. We see a lot of people just post to Zillow, maybe Craigslist or Facebook. But if you notice, if you've ever done this before, maybe you have not. Okay, we're gonna assume that it's your first time. There are a lot of low quality buyers. Some are not, like when I say low quality, mean they're not qualified. They haven't went through the pre-approval process. They just like the home and they want to see it. So a lot of times you're wasting your time sifting through those leads that come through. And whereas an agent, they're going to make sure you're getting in front of qualified buyers. Now, when we post to MLS. That's where it feeds Zillow their information. So Zillow gets the information from the system that we use, MLS. And then we also, I know at Microgrids, we also send that out to almost 300 different online sites. So, and those are all getting in front of people who are serious buyers, they're ready in the market, and they're not tired kids that are going to waste your time. So we're really putting your place out there, your house out there, and making it visible. Now, of course, you do it on your own. People use, like as I said before, the marketplace, the Zillow, Craigslist. But what are you going to do to qualify those leads that are coming through? Are you just going to be letting people in your home because they said they love your home and they can buy it? What's your process going to look like? So you're doing that, and then even with your photos, are you taking the photos? Are you going to get a photographer? We always recommend getting a photographer. Now, if you're taking the photos, there's just some things you have to really think about because a buyer is going to be looking at that, and they're going to be really, really critical when it comes to the pictures because they're looking for a home as one of their largest investments. So taking photos, the toilet seat is up, um, things like that. Maybe the blinds are halfway up, halfway down, they're cracked. Maybe there's your personal photos, there's someone in the photo, the bed isn't made, there's clothes everywhere, clutter everywhere. So it's really being mindful if you're getting the pictures done to make sure we talk about that kind of staging and prepping. You want to make sure that it's picture perfect. And so you're putting your best foot forward with the pictures. And investing in professional photos makes a world of difference. Now, if you're selling your home and you really want top dollar, that's not somewhere where you want to skimp because this is what the buyer sees first. They see that package, right? And that's what attracts them. Now, if you're not putting that best foot forward, who knows what type of quality buyer you'll get, and you may lose buyers because they're just turned off by the photos. It's not presented well. Um, I just like thinking about if you had a package of food, some kind of packaged item. Now, if someone handed to you a nice packaged item, a nice packaged muffin, and they handed you a muffin that was, or the wrapper was crinkled up, the muffin was broken apart. They're the same product, but they're packaged differently. Which one would you take? You would take the nice item, right? So it's the same with your house. You want to present your house in a way that's picture perfect, and that's going to put the best foot forward, your best foot forward, and get buyers excited about seeing your home. So you're doing that, and then comes your open houses and your showings. How are you handling that? If you're gonna have, are you gonna have an open house? How are you gonna market the open house? How are people gonna know about it? How you can get as many people as you can in there. With the agent, we have already a database of buyers. We have other agents that we send open houses to. We send open houses on all the systems that we're the sites that we're public the sites that we are putting the listing on. We're sending that out to that open house information. And again, that's our database. Um, I go door to door to neighboring houses to invite folks, of course, the permission of my sellers. And then I also send out mailers, hey, you can come to the open house, invite anyone you know, just get as many buyers as I can in to see the property. And it was showings. How are you going to handle showings? Or is it going to be certain day, certain time, or are you just going to be taking calls all day and trying to set up appointments, a few times a day here and there? How are you going to do that? And then can anyone just come in your home that wants to see the house, or are they how are you vetting them? How are you verifying that they're a serious buyer? What's that process going to look like for you? So that's something you think about when it comes to the agent. Agent handles all that information. And um, you have your listing agent and you have the buyer. The buyer agent do their due diligence as well, but then you have the listing agent that will do the due diligence with, just verifying that they have all their ducks in a row. So that's something to think about with the showings, and that's why folks really do use an agent, because it's just like it's more convenient and less of a hassle. You have to take on that stress of just like always being on and having to schedule those showings, the open house, people don't show, and you totally rearrange your schedule. So that's really something to think about. And then when it comes time for offers, so you prepped your home, you priced your home, you market your home, and now it's time to handle offers and negotiations. So you have to understand with comparing offers, how you know which one's the best offer for you. Maybe you can get two that are the same exact price, but there's something in the contract that makes them different. But will you be able to recognize those things? So a buyer, 90% of buyers use buyer's agent. So most likely you're going to get contracts that are written from the buyer's agent. So understanding that contract is vital, because once you sign, you are held liable for following through the contract and everything that the contract entails. So in that, you need to understand that. And then what does the offer mean? So there's different components of the offer. Maybe there's the time to close. Are you going to close in 30 days? Are you going to close in 2 weeks? Are you going to close in 60 days? That the offer will speak to all those things. If it's the same amount of money, maybe someone's going to close sooner and you want that. Or maybe one person saying, hey, I know you need to find housing first, so we can delay our closing 60 days, 90 days, whatever you need. So that's kind of what makes the offer different. You want to look at those little things. Maybe some folks are waiving inspections. And so they're like, I don't even care about the inspection. I love the property. I want it. That might be an offer as well, or you'll have your inspection contingency period. Now, what does the inspection contingency period mean? I know what that means, but how are you going to figure out what that means? And when you're signing that contract, what are you actually agreeing to? So, and sure, inspection contingency is that if anything goes wrong with the inspection, the buyer is able to pull out and they'll get their earnest money deposit back. And then normally during that process, they either terminate or they're going to try to negotiate. And this is when the buyer agent is going to do their job and try to get their buyer everything. So, and if you're unrepresented, they don't know what a seller that's unrepresented and they don't do this, they don't know what's normal negotiation and what may be extreme that the agent is asking for. So not having that representation and that knowledge and experience to kind of help you with negotiations really puts you at a disadvantage. And so you have that. And so negotiating terms beyond price, you have to negotiate closing. Some people may try to do closing costs, with closing credits in there. Different type of contingencies. Maybe they say, okay, we're gonna buy your home, but first I have to sell my home. And you say, okay, I agree. But what a listing agent would have done with that offer before they even said, okay, it's okay that, this is the offer. Do you want to accept it? We are going to find out all the facts with the sale of the home. Is it on the market? If it's on the market, is it priced right? Because it may not be priced right. It may sit for a year and now you're under contract with this person that's going to keep on extending and extending and extending in hopes that their home will sell. So that's something called a Hubbard. And I can't even get into that right now. It's a whole class in itself, whole days, a matter of fact. And, so uh, those are things that come up all the time. But when you're a seller and you don't do this, you don't really know what questions to ask. So sometimes you put yourself at a disadvantage because you don't have all the facts and know what you need to ask. So you may think the offer seems good and it's a good offer, but there are just some things that you agree to that actually puts you at a disadvantage. But you didn't have anyone there to guide you and figure that out. And of course, you can get a real estate attorney to help you with this, but a real estate attorney, they don't do they're not gonna do your negotiations. They're looking at your contract, they're helping you with any legal matters, but they are not there to negotiate on behalf. They're not there to help you with inspection, your inspection report and going through and seeing, okay, they're asking for things based on the inspection. Is that something I should do? So a real estate attorney, that's not their area of expertise. And that's where people kind of get it diluted where, okay, I have a real estate agent, I'm okay, I'm protected. But their scope of work is totally different from the scope of work of a realtor. Now, real estate attorney, they're looking at the title. Is the title clear and free of any liens? Well, if you're a seller, they're making sure they're going through and say, okay, do we have to pay off any debt? Things like that. Okay, when your taxes, what did you prepay? What are you gonna get back? So they're figuring out the financial pieces and getting your closing disclosure ready and the transfer of the deed. They're preparing all those documents, but they're not there to negotiate. They're not there for showings. They're not there for your open houses or any things like that. You run into a crazy buyer or someone that's just knocking on your door into your house. They're not there for that. So it's really critical to understand that the real estate attorney has a really, really fine scope and it sticks to that scope. So, a lot of people try to lean on them and that's just not what happens. And then when they don't get that support, they're upset with the attorney, but that's not the attorney's job. So that's just a little tidbit about how a real estate attorney differs with a real estate agent in that, they have their clear defined scope. Now, when it comes to your final step, you have your contract, it's going to your closing. Well, you're for your contract to close, you have your home inspection. So inspector comes in, that's usually done here in Connecticut within like 7 days. You want that done. Some people ask for 10 days. But it's so anywhere between 7 to 10 days to have that inspection done and any kind of ask, any requests for repairs are usually done at that time. And also the appraisal happens. The appraisal usually happens like right after inspection because they don't want their buyers to pay for an appraisal and they're not going to go through with the deal. So the appraisal usually follows right behind the inspection. And then from that part, you're gonna have to navigate any kind of paperwork or legal requirements. So, like for the VA, there's different forms you may have to sign. FHA loans, you may have to sign the FHA mandatory clause. Same thing with a VA. So, there, a real estate attorney can kind of help you on that. An agent would have been your go-to to get the forms completed and explain that to you. But if you're on trying to do it on your own, your real estate agent can, uh, you know, tell you what that form is for. Um, but as far as like negotiating, if you're like, I don't want to sign this, that's a whole other thing. You can talk to your real estate attorney. I don't give you advice about that. Now, the importance of having a skilled negotiator on your side, i.e., an agent, is that they're going to work on your behalf. A buyer's agent is already coming in. We already said 90% of buyers come through the door with the agent. And so they're represented, their best interest is represented. So they're going to make sure that their client is one, they're paying the least amount of money that they can. They're not going to say, okay, go to your top of budget or offer this high amount. They're not gonna say, okay, we're not gonna ask for anything. You really want this house. They're gonna try to get everything they can out of that seller if possible. So and that's nothing bad towards them. They're just working on the behalf of the client. They want their client to have the best deal. Their client hired them, so that's what they're there for. Now you don't have representation. You want someone that's going to be able to advise you and guide you every step of the way make the process more streamlined, more efficient. Their agents is communicating with lenders, they're communicating with both sides of real estate attorneys. So you don't have to be the middleman and trying to speak to all these different parties, all these different parties that the real estate agent deals with. And that at the end of the day, anytime they're communicating with these parties, they're working on your behalf and advocating for your needs and giving you the advice that you need. So they're there on your side, and they're there to make sure that one, you're getting the most you can for the property in the least amount of time. So that's the agent's job. So people think that, okay, I'm gonna save $1, but they're actually losing money. And there was a study that came out from the National Association of Realtors where there's an average homeowners that sold their homes themselves for sale by owner, that they left an average between like 45 to $55,000 on the table because they just didn't either price it right or they just negotiated and gave too much of when they didn't have to do that. So they left money on the table. So here you're trying to save a few $1,000s and you potentially lost $55,000, sometimes even more. So it's just important that you're making this big choice. You want to be represented as much as you can. I know myself, I want the best of the best on my side. I don't want to try to do everything on my own. I want to be able to lean on the experts in the field. And I'm glad I happen to be one. But before I was an agent, I went and got one of the top agents to sell my home. And so, and it's just because I knew that I wanted them to make the most amount of money with the least amount of effort in the least amount of time. So if that's your goal, I definitely get with the agent that can do that for you. Now, if you don't mind, you just have all the time in the world, you just want to try it out on your own, um, then yeah, go ahead. And even if you're in a tough financial situation, you feel like, okay, well, I have a lot of debts or a lot of liens and I don't think I can afford an agent. Agents sometimes will figure out ways to make it work for you. Or maybe if you're in a situation where you're over leveraged, you have to sell, but in the market you may not make a profit. There's things like short sale. There's so many different things that agent can kind of help you and give you creative solutions for. So and you don't have to feel alone in what you're going through. So I think that's a lot of I cover a lot. And so if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But I just wanted to give you some statistics about um sellers who sell their homes on their own, just so you can kind of see. This is real data, and this is from the National Association of Realtors. Homes sold with the assistance of an agent achieved a medium sell price of 435,000 compared to 380,000. So that was the difference of that 55,000. There was a difference between, sellers that sold their home there by themselves and that use the agent. We talked about that a little bit. And then faster sales. Agent assisted homes typically sell faster, with the average home being on the market for just 3 weeks. And it's not sitting up there for months. And then decreasing your first sale by owner success. The percentage of homes sold via FISBO, which is for sale by owner, has declined to 6% in 2024, indicating a growing preference for an agent assisted sale. So only 6% of sales are people who sold themselves, and everyone else had representation. Now, challenges faced by owners who sell on their own is that they often encounter difficulties. 17% reporting challenges in a setting is setting the right price. So 17% struggle with setting the right price. And then 10% struggle with understanding how to complete the paperwork. There's a lot of paperwork when it comes to a real estate transaction, and it can be overwhelming. I know my clients explain that to them all day. We're going through the forms. Okay, this is what this form is, and this is what it means for you, and what happens if we don't do this. So we go through all these different things and break down the forms. Um, and that's my job. But if you don't have representation with an agent, you don't have that 100%. Of course, you can call an attorney, but again, their scope is their scope. They're not going over every document with you and showing you how to negotiate and what you should put and how to counter and things like that. Now, professional expertise, 90% of sellers were assisted by a real estate agent in 2024. So that's reflecting the trust and reliance on homeowners placed on professional expertise. So we're just seeing that a lot of home sellers are just going the route with, you know what, I want to not have to deal with the headache and the stress, and I want to get the most for my home. And right now, I know in Connecticut, we are in a seller's market. So sellers do have more of the upper hand when it comes to the housing market. And now, what that means for you, we can definitely talk about it more if you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation. Now, even if you're not in Connecticut and you're viewing this seminar, feel free to reach out to me. I have a global network. I can always connect you with the agent in your area who can give you local expertise and knowledge and help you on your path. So, again, my name is Chanelle Goldson. I'm a realtor here in Connecticut. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it, Chanelle Goldson. And if you want to schedule a one-on-one consultation, feel free to email me or text me. My information will be attached to this, so you'll have that information. So thank you and have a great day.